Hello, everyone! A couple of happy newlyweds settle into their new home, but unexpectedly find old skeletons in its closet.
That's a room.
Tom and Jillian's pleasant evening continues over a drink and a romantic conversation. The house used to belong to Tom's family, and his father put a lot of work into this place. The couple toast to the start of a new life, but their date is interrupted by a noise from the basement. There's a whole workshop down there, and a pile of old stuff from Tom's childhood. Suddenly, a small dog comes out from behind one of the stacks and confidently runs up the stairs. Tom and his wife rush after it, and the lights in the basement begin to flicker. The next day, the couple paints the walls. The new inhabitant of the house keeps them company. Jillian looks at him and recalls how she used to have a plush dog that looked just like him when she was a child. She lost it when she was 5 years old. The couple first playfully smear each other with paints, and then proceed to enjoy each other's company again. In the next scene, Jillian is tending to the garden. Suddenly, a man carrying groceries walks into a house next door. The girl waves to him sweetly. At dinner, the pair invites another married couple over. It turns out that Tom and Jillian have been friends since childhood. Tom has convinced her to return to their hometown, and now the newlyweds live in the house that he grew up in. The man enjoys finding old memories from he and his wife's childhood. Among such findings is Jillian's drawings of Pretzel Jack, an agile clown acrobat she made up as a child. For Jillian, the next day begins at the store. She walks between the shelves and accidentally spots Tom. He's talking to an unfamiliar woman and doesn't notice his wife. At home, among the bills, she finds a letter. It's signed by hand, and it says that the message was sent by a certain Bill Hope. Jill tears up the envelope, hides it in her bag, and asks her husband questions about the woman at the store. Tom replies that her name is Sarah Winters. He had renovated her and her husband's bedroom, but Sarah was left dissatisfied with the results. Jillian continues the interrogation. Tom says nothing happened between him and the former client, and even if something did, it was a long time ago. At night, Jill apologizes to Tom and says that she trusts him. Nonetheless, her sleep is troubled. In the morning, Tom asks his wife to come down to the basement. Something has changed there, and he wants to show his discovery to Jill.
I don't get it. I don't remember any door here.
The door is sealed shut, and neither Tom nor his childhood friend Jason, who drops by for a visit in the evening, can open it. Even under the blows of a sledgehammer, the handle refuses to open, though they can hear that there's a hollow space behind the door. Jason can't stand it any longer and brings out a shotgun. The lights begin to flicker in time with the shots, and then turn off completely. Jill approaches the door and, surprisingly, just opens it. There's a staircase leading down. Upon descending, the friends find a similar door, but with a white handprint. They decide to visit their neighbors and talk to them about the discovery. The door must lead to their house. The elderly O'Connell family used to live there before. They're greeted on the doorstep by the man whom Jillian greeted in the yard in the morning. His name is Ian. The trio persuades the neighbor to let them into the basement, but there is no sign of any mysterious passageways. Ian says he's rented the house and is working on his PhD. The couple goes back and calls a locksmith to pick the lock. The locksmith fails to do it, and the group tries everything else they can think of. Shotgun, chisel, bolt cutter, but the door won't budge. The next day at a therapy session, the woman answers questions about her trust issues. She suspects her husband of having secret affairs. The doctor thinks it's time for the couple to discuss their secrets and stop with the mutual mistrust. But Jill wants to call the mysterious number she came across in the phone bills. Tom only calls it at night. When she gets home, Tom all of a sudden goes out to meet Jason. It's already dark outside. Jill lets him go, but tails him. Tom arrives at some lady's house and goes with her to a room that Jill can't see from outside. Jillian goes home and pours herself a glass of liquor. A knock comes from the basement. The girl goes downstairs. Jill opens the door and enters a dark room. Surveying the surroundings with a flashlight, the girl realizes that she is not alone. Jillian calls the police. The officers think the creature snuck into the house while the couple was away, but the protagonist is sure it was already inside. Suddenly, Ian shows up on the doorstep of their house. The next morning, Jillian is haunted by the thought of the other woman. She calls Sarah Winters. The woman says that she will get a restraining order against Tom and hangs up. In the evening, the girl greets her husband with questions about his relationship with Sarah. Tom leaves to think things over. The man reaches his destination. On the doorstep, he is greeted by an unknown woman with the words, "2 nights in a row, a dark silhouette passes in front of the house." Jill gets in her car and drives to Jason's place. She questions her husband's friend about the affair, but he says that Tom is innocent. Jason blames all suspicions on Jillian and advises her to talk to her spouse. The lights start flickering. In the midst of the argument, a creature in a white mask appears in the dark doorway. Jason's mangled body remains on the floor. The maniac looks uncannily similar to Jill's imaginary friend from the past. An investigation into Jason's death is going on at Jason's home. Jillian tells the cops she has no idea who the attacker was. The investigators note that a neighbor saw the bloodied killer and wonders why he didn't touch Jill. At home, Jillian goes down to the basement. Among her old things, she finds drawings of Pretzel Jack. She goes outside and runs into Ian again. The guy makes casual conversation and asks her to describe the attacker. The girl says she didn't get a good look at him. At that moment, Tom looks out the window and the pair part ways. The next day, Jason's funeral takes place. Jill feels anxious and can't get rid of her intrusive thoughts. At home, Tom looks at photos with Jason and then discusses the events with his wife in the bathroom. He doesn't believe in the paranormal. At night, Jillian has a dream about Jack and her old nursery. The next day, Jillian goes to the house that used to belong to her family. She's greeted on the doorstep by an old lady. The girl's maiden name turns out to be Hope, and her father's name is revealed to be Bill. The current owner gets a phone call, and Jill seizes the moment to sneak into her old room. There she finds the very closet from her nightmares. When the old lady calls her, she says that she went to the restroom and leaves in a hurry. Meanwhile, Tom walks up to some kid and gives him a toy. Sarah finds the doll, looks around, and drives the stroller away with undisguised apprehension. Jillian waits in the car until the new owner of her old house leaves for a walk with her pets. As soon as the woman leaves the house, Jill heads back to the nursery. At home, she can't get thoughts of her find out of her head. Tom tries unsuccessfully to distract her, and then starts asking why she was at Jason's. Jillian doesn't answer, and then he reveals that the cops suspect her of lying, and he himself is starting to have doubts. Jill gets up, and glimpses of a shadowy figure flash behind the bedroom door.
Tom, he's upstairs!
Tom tries to find the maniac, but he's gone. In a session with her psychiatrist, Jillian reveals that the character she made up has become real. She believes that Jack had come out of the closet when her father left the family. The doctor tries to convince the girl that the figment of her imagination only appears real to her when she's stressed. The therapist dismisses her ideas and suggests that she take sedatives. The lights begin to flicker in the office, and Jillian leaves in anger. The girl returns home and once again encounters the neighbor. Jill thanks him for the support and accepts his offer to have tea together. Ian tells her about his work. She responds by telling him the whole story about Pretzel Jack and the mysterious doors. Even about the fact that the monster killed Jason. The guy thinks the demonic clown is attacking those who make Jillian angry. Tom arrives at the home of the mysterious lady. She turns out to be his psychiatrist. The woman says that Tom shouldn't have approached the baby in the park. The man can't calm down and says that the baby looks just like him. The lady leads Tom deep into the house, opens a room and lights candles inside it. She closes the door. Tom is left alone. The woman asks him to find his silence and leaves to feed the fish. But in the office, she turns on the hidden camera from the room with her naked patient. The unfed fish don't seem to interest her anymore. Jillian returns home with Ian when it's already dark outside. He tells her that when he was a kid, he also made up an imaginary guardian character. His name was Tallboy, a huge, baby-faced creature that was supposed to instill fear in people. Jillian tells the man about her complicated relationship with her father. He's still in town, but the girl doesn't want to talk to him. When Jill was 8, her dad left her and her mom for another family. Meanwhile, Tom enters the room with the pool and lies down in it to calm down and relax. At home, Jill hears somebody calling him, unlocks his laptop and answers. On the other end is a woman with the initial S and her young child. Sarah asks Tom to stay away from her family and her baby. The lights in the room begin to flicker. At the same time, while Tom is swimming, the psychiatrist notices movement in her house. Jack quickly deals with the woman, while Tom doesn't even hear the gunshots. He's relaxing in the water. The clown quietly sneaks up on Tom and attacks. Tom fights off the demonic Jack. The manifestation of his wife's imagination tries to drown him in the pool, but the man manages to break free. In the hallway, he slips on the floor and falls. Nearby lies the half-dead therapist. The creature jumps on the protagonist from above and tries to stick a knife in him. Jack almost accomplishes his plan, but the shot gives Tom some time, though the attacker remains alive. As the man runs out of the hallway, the masked monster rises from the floor and follows him. Tom grabs the keys and jumps into his counselor's car in nothing but his underwear. The vehicle starts at the last moment, when Jack is right next to it. But suddenly, a woman crashes into the car. The creature sees this and retreats. Jillian is called to the hospital to see her husband. She goes down to the first floor and meets her neighbor there. Ian is bringing in the dog that has run out into the street. He offers his newfound friend a ride to the clinic. They enter Tom's room together. Jill's husband says he's feeling better. Tom tells his wife that he's been practicing water meditation. Jillian wonders why he hasn't told her about it before. She wants to know the reasons for her husband's worries, but their conversation is interrupted by the police. 2 officers enter the room and question the couple about what happened. The deceased's name was Vanessa Moss, and she didn't advertise her services anywhere. Because of this, the officers conclude that Tom was the target of the attack. He and the psychiatrist have one common contact in their phones, Sarah Winters. Tom says he did some work for her, and she knows his home address. The cops are interested in the criminal's strange appearance. Jill says she knows nothing about it, but her husband notes that the maniac looks alarmingly similar to Pretzel Jack. He thinks someone was in their basement, found his spouse's drawings, and decided to copy his appearance. The cops are once again wondering why the maniac always leaves Jill alive. At home, Tom offers Jill to go to a hotel, but his wife wants to show him something.
He's me. What? Come on, I want to show you something.
Jack watches their conversation from outside, but then leaves and falls asleep. In the basement, Jillian reveals that she invented Jack as her protector against everything. The monster isn't afraid of bullets, and the prototype for him was a clown from the circus that Jill's father used to take her to when the man left the family. Jack became real. She remembered the creature crawling out of a small closet door in her house. Jillian recounts that her friend used to sleep under the bed throughout her childhood and disappeared after she moved out. She leads Tom deep into the passage, beyond the second door with the handprint. In the empty room lies something that resembles Jack's dried up makeup. Jill asks Tom about the child. The lights flicker, and Jack wakes up in his hideout. The wife tells Tom everything she knows about Sarah and the baby. Tom claims that when they got together with Jillian, he no longer had anything to do with Winters. It turns out that Sarah is married, and her husband thinks that the baby is his. Tom's son is 8 months and 1 week old. Jillian accuses her husband of not telling her anything. Tom replies that he couldn't because of the situation with her father. He admits that he screwed up and did the wrong thing. Jack is rushing through the woods. Tom says he was afraid of losing his wife, so he didn't tell her anything. His wife replies that she doesn't know if they can be together anymore. The creature only finds their car driving away. The couple decides to go to Jillian's psychiatrist. The doctor agrees to hold a session, but promises to refer the couple to a family therapist he knows. The doctor still thinks Jack isn't real. Tom says he feels guilty for keeping the secret from his wife and now wants to make it up to her. Jillian, on the other hand, wants to talk about her imaginary friend, but both men won't listen to her, not wishing to address the real problem. When the therapist calls her a child, the lights in the room begin to flicker. A loud noise is heard from the adjacent room. Jill asks the therapist not to look out. The doctor insists that Jack isn't real and opens the door. That indeed was just a simple janitor cleaning the room. Unfortunately, the window turns out to be open. Jack crawls into the office and begins to perform his sinister dance. The creature rises in front of the doctor and stares him in the eyes. Outside, the couple is picked up by Ian. He happens to be nearby in his SUV. Jack runs after them, but quickly disappears from sight. The neighbor takes the couple home and invites them inside. He claims that Jillian has some special ability, just like him. The couple believes him and enters. The guy tells them that Pretzel Jack is the embodiment of Jill's fears and emotions. Her only difference from other people is that she can materialize them into a creepy creature. It turns out that Ian has moved in next to them by no accident. He has learned about Jill's abilities and believes that the two of them can sense each other. The guy believes that Jack and other such creatures can be controlled, and that he and Jill can breed them at will. Tom asks for proof, and Ian agrees to materialize a cat. The distrustful man was asking for a werewolf, but his spouse set the more simple task. Ian lies down on the bed. The lights begin to flicker. The neighbor approaches the small door that has appeared in the wall. He opens it, and a cat runs out of it. She belongs to a special breed of Lycoi. They are known as werewolf cats. The neighbor says that Jill needs to learn how to control the power. He also says that in time, she can learn to materialize the doors and destroy them. Ian believes that the power works on objects created by mind at a distance of a few hundred miles. The rest of the time, the creatures don't move and eventually dry up and crumble. But if a human can create them, there's a high risk that their mind will spawn another one. That's why Jillian needs to learn how to control Pretzel Jack. The trio decides to trap him so Jill can practice. They take a seat in a dark room, and the couple begins to work out their relationship. Tom deliberately hurts his wife to make her angry. He says everything to his wife's face and tries to leave, but he is met in the passage by Jack. At that moment, Jill gets a call from her father, and Jack runs past Tom. He goes to his master and does his weird acrobatic dance in front of her. At that moment, someone rings the doorbell upstairs and calls for Tom. He opens the door. The episode begins with Jack's first appearance in Jillian's life. The new guest is friendly to her. He shows her tricks and amuses the child. The flashback ends with Jillian and Jack embracing. He lays down peacefully by the remains of his dried-up old self and falls asleep. When this happens, the girl and Ian leave the room. The neighbor tells Jill that she has a unique gift, but to master it, she needs to stay calm and practice. Suddenly, Jillian notices Tom in the window, talking to Sarah. Right away, lights in the house start blinking. Jack immediately rushes out of the basement, but Ian manages to lock him behind the door.
Just stay calm. Deep breaths. Just breathe.
When the girl calms down, so does her imaginary friend, and the lights stop flickering. At least, that's how it seems at first. But cunning Jack finds a way through the basement window and wounds Sarah in the leg. Tom pushes him away and runs off with Winters, but the creature follows in pursuit. Ian and Jill follow them, but Sarah manages to call the police, and the officers involved in Jack's case arrive on the scene. Near the couple's house, they find a broken window frame from the basement. They pull out their guns and begin inspecting the surrounding area. Meanwhile, the neighbor tries to teach Jillian how to handle her new skills. Together, they follow a trail of white makeup on the ground. Tom and Sarah have run ahead and are trying to hide from their pursuer. They enter a building. There, the pair starts to sort out their relationship. The man says he wants to see his son. Sarah, in turn, says she did a DNA paternity test and has come to report the results to her former lover. Tom is probably not involved in the birth of the boy he thought was his son. At the same moment, Jillian's father is trying to get into her house. He knocks on the door, but no one is there. While the man is looking for his daughter, Jack catches up with Tom and Sarah and starts searching all over the building for them. Tom leaves Sarah in a safe place and goes to get help. The creature nearly catches him several times. The man's escape ends at the pool. There, the clown gets him and tries to drown him. Jill and Ian catch him in the act. The neighbor promises to help his friend control her gift. He takes her by the hands and asks her to do everything he says. Jill obeys.
Now let go.
Tom swims to the surface and finally breathes in. Jack let go of him and stayed in the water with his arms spread out. But Ian wants the girl to finish what she started and learn to destroy her mind's creations. The method works, and Tom gets out of the poolside. Exhausted Jill and Ian fall to the floor. Sarah runs over to check on Tom, with his wife and the neighbor watching them from the window. Jillian's ears are bleeding. Tom looks apprehensively at his wife and leaves with Winters. Sarah is taken to the hospital. Everyone who was there during Jack's last attack is in the room. Winters asks everyone but Jill to step outside so she can talk to her. They're left alone, and Sarah confesses that her child is not from Tom. In the hallway, meanwhile, Tom is not getting along well with Ian and walks away from him deep into the clinic. Sarah says that Jill's husband never loved her. He simply wanted to be involved in the upbringing of the child he thought was his. But Jillian isn't moved by that. She's more concerned about the fact that her husband lied to her. Sarah says that trust can be rebuilt, but the girl doubts it. Jill leaves the room and Ian speaks to her. The girl looks for Tom, but he's gone to get coffee for Sarah. By the time Tom returns to the room, his wife has already left with the neighbor. Mr. Winters is on his way to the hospital, so the man hastily leaves. In the middle of the drive, Jill asks to stop the car. Over the highway hangs a banner advertising the social housing project her father is building. She asks Ian to teach her how to use her gift. At the hospital, Tom is detained by the police. The cops suspect his wife of organizing the assassination. Ian brings Jillian to his family's old house. It's located in an abandoned neighborhood that her father once built. The girl feels sick. Ian explains that her powers are draining her, and she needs time to recover. He makes her a sleeping place on the couch, taking her phone and looking through the messages in it. Her worried father is texting her. Tom comes home and finds a voicemail on his cell phone from Bill Hope. He says he just wants to give his daughter some important information about her family and is looking for her. Tom calls Jill. At that moment, Ian arrives at a motel where Bill is staying.
Not the kid you were expecting? Dad?
He tells his father that he will not abandon his half-sister like he did. In response, Bill asks him to do the right thing for once in his life. The man asks Ian to leave his sister alone. He says that the guy has always been the bad seed and has done mostly evil and horrible things. At this point, Ian loses his temper. The lights start flickering. He says that Jillian has inherited her gift from her father. Bill doesn't seem to understand what he's talking about. Behind his back, the door opens.
It's your seed, asshole.
The huge tall boy, Ian's childhood friend, kills Bill and dumps the body in the bathtub. The boy orders him to clean up. Tom catches the neighbor loading the last of his belongings into the car. He waits for Ian to leave and breaks into Bill's room. It's completely cleaned up. Ian arrives at a fast food restaurant and quickly eats a huge order to regain his strength. Jillian wakes up in the morning and the neighbor brings her herbal tea. He says the girl needs to regain her strength before her next training session and kisses her on the lips. Jill pulls away. At the beginning of the new episode, Ian has a training session with Jillian. He asks her to create a rabbit, but the girl fails. Her teacher says it's because she destroyed Jack last night. The creature was part of Jill. He also tells her that the same thing happened with his first character from his childhood, Tallboy. Jill gives it another try.
That was all you?
She opens the newly appeared door, and a rabbit does indeed emerge from it. But it's a terrifying one, and it dies immediately. Watching this, Ian reveals that he's the one who created the dog and planted it in the newlyweds' home. He encourages his mentee, saying that soon she will be able to control the tulpas as if they are her puppets. Ian is making breakfast. Meanwhile, Jillian finds her phone smashed on the floor. She doesn't understand what happened and decides to go outside for some air. Tom tries to call his spouse, but each time he gets the voicemail. He leaves her a message asking her to come home. The man pets the dog, and outside the window sees another one. He goes after it. Jill notices strange movement as well. Her search leads her into the thicket, and then to the front door of the house that Ian brought her to. She goes inside, opens the closet, and finds her old toy dog in it. Jillian questions her mentor over breakfast. She asks why the guy chose that particular breed for her dog. Ian answers evasively, and Jill tells him about the toy she had as a child. She also asks the neighbor about his mom. Ian says she died this year. He ends by saying that she deserved better than what she got, and pounces on the food. While Jillian is having breakfast with the neighbor, Tom finds the second dog dressed in a pink sweater. It leads the man to Ian's house, the one he rents for work. In the basement, the man discovers many small doorways concealed by garbage. There, he also finds bizarre drawings, an unfortunate replica of Jill's dog, and Ian's family photo.
You can do that, you know. Make your own reality.
Jill says she wants to go home, and the man agrees to give her a ride. At their destination, when the couple leaves the car, Tallboy comes out after them. Inside the house, they encounter Tom. He immediately asks Ian what he was doing at the motel the previous night. Jill's husband says her father called her and puts a photo of her family that he found in the neighbor's house on the table. Tom says that her dad wanted to tell her something important and urgent about her family. He recounts how he went to the motel to have a word with him and saw Ian leaving. The protagonist also immediately asks Ian about why he has so many childhood pictures of his spouse. At this point, Jillian understands everything.
He's my brother.
Half-brother.
Ian says he's been looking to meet Jill since he first found out about her, and the fact that she has a similar gift. He says he loves Jill and has done something important for her. To see it, he invites the couple to the garage. When the trio gets there, they are met with a horrifying sight.
Oh, you got out of your cages.
Upon seeing this, Ian closes the garage door. Jillian pushes him away, tells him to stay away from them, and calls the police. At this point, Tallboy wants to lunge at her from behind, but Ian doesn't let him. Detectives find the corpse in the garage and question the neighbor about what happened. He admits that he killed Jason, his father, and the psychiatrist. He also reveals that he killed the previous owners of his house and hid them in the backyard. He is handcuffed and sent to prison. After all of this, Tom has a conversation with Jillian at their house. The couple decides to stay together and consolidate their decision on the nearest bed. In the moment of intimacy, lights start flickering and a new door appears on the wall. This time, however, it's a horizontal one. Tom opens it.
What is that?
It's our baby. It's part of me.
It seems to the girl that the creature is dying. Meanwhile, the cops are driving Ian to the precinct. The road is blocked by a school bus with its emergency lights on. As soon as the officers slow down, Tallboy starts running towards them. He takes the roadworker's tools and smashes out the windshield. The creature then methodically kills the two detectives and frees its master. Ian leaves the crime scene. At home, Jillian asks to be left alone with the ugly baby. Tom goes out for some air and runs into Ian. The man tries to get a police officer to arrest the uninvited guest, but the neighbor summons Tallboy. The monster kills the cop. Tom wants to go home, but a passage created by Ian appears in place of the front door. The monster from his drawings is hiding behind it. It peeks out of a small crack. At that moment, the creature Jill and Tom created dies in her arms. She goes down to the first floor and steps outside. There she notices Ian's door, but there's no one behind it anymore. Nearby, she discovers a message. The next episode begins with Tom being dragged across the floor of a house half passed out. The man is brought to his senses by Ian. Suddenly, Ian is struck with pain, but he quickly recovers. The neighbor threatens Tom with death. He also confesses his love for Jillian and trusts in the mysterious connection between them. The guy believes that the couple got together only because of their old friendship. Tom waits for the moment when Ian squirms in pain again and takes to his heels. Tallboy sets off in pursuit. By this point, Jillian arrives at the ghost neighborhood. As soon as she gets out of the car, someone runs past behind her. A car pulls up behind the girl, blinding her with its headlights. The man inside introduces himself as a security officer. Jill asks if he's seen anyone here today. As the guard leaves the car, strange creatures begin to surround the two.
Is this some sort of joke or something?
The freaks quickly kill the guard, while Jill escapes. At one of the houses, she finds her spouse. Tom takes her hands, and his wife tries to summon Pretzel Jack. However, at one point, Ian's image appears in front of her for a second, and nothing happens. Her spouse is acting strangely, and insists on simply being alone together. Suddenly, Jill realizes that he is also an imaginary creature and starts backing away. A copy of Tom chases after her, while Ian is squirming on the floor of his dwelling from pain. Jillian stabs the doppelganger with a sharp stake, and white liquid oozes out of his body. At that moment, the real Tom appears behind her. Morning arrives. Creatures are scurrying around the unfinished neighborhood. Jill and Tom hide in one of the buildings. Together, the newlyweds find themselves on the street, and Ian comes out to meet them. He looks weak and confesses that he created a copy of Tom to be with Jill. Tallboy approaches him from behind. Ian orders him to attack Tom. The couple runs away. After a couple of yards, their neighbor falls over from pain. Tom and Jill run into an unfinished house. The husband says that he is ready to accept his chosen one with all of her weirdness and confesses his love for her. He also apologizes to her for not listening when it was needed and not believing her right away. Ian comes to his senses on the ground, while Tallboy approaches the house where the newlyweds are hiding. The couple decides to act. Jill goes up to the second floor. For a long time, the girl cannot materialize a new door. Tallboy enters the house, looking for her. Tom distracts the monster, and Jill finally creates a passage. The trio decides to kill Ian and goes out into the street. The neighbor tries to escape. Hordes of his creations roam the neighborhood. Ian sprints to a vacant lot and, using the last of his strength, revives Tallboy. He spots his pursuers and continues fleeing. The chase brings all of them into a house. In one room, Jillian finds a decayed doppelganger of her mother. In another, she finds her brother eating on the floor. Numerous colorful doors line the walls. The boy recounts how he pushed his sister to use the gift. Ian also asks if Jillian feels their connection. She replies that she does, but thinks the guy is insane. The brother accuses Jill of not looking for him.
I thought you must be perfect. And I hated you.
He becomes disappointed in his sister and tries to strangle her. At this point, Jack comes to Jillian's aid, but Tallboy cuts him in half from behind. Tom comes to his wife's aid. Tallboy rushes at him, but misses. All the doors disappear. Tom and Jillian find themselves back at home. They're taking care of their baby. The baby has inherited his mother's gift and materializes his first door. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give this video a like so that more awesome stories come out as often as possible.